How you doing? I've always been kind of interested in how Equestria works. Not in a magic doesn't make sense kind of way, because we've already touched on that kind of thing on the channel, but more on an actual nation side. How does Equestria, as a nation, function? Well, I decided to look into it a bit, and by watching this video, you know how that ended. For this video, I'm going to try my best to explain what I gather to be the political system of Equestria, how it's run and all that jazz. Obviously, I can't guarantee it's accurate, and if you have anything else to add, feel free to do so in the comments. There's also room for speculation left in here, not everything I'm saying is even concrete. I'm just trying to paint a basic picture and figure out a clear structure for how Equestria functions. So, with the preamble over, let's get on to the actual video. To start, we have to talk about the first thing that comes to mind when you hear running Equestria. The princesses. For most of the show, they're treated as both the symbolic and literal heads of government. But what's interesting is that the princess title in Equestria doesn't actually line up with how monarchies work in the real world. In most cases, princess is a title given to the daughter of a ruling monarch, but in Equestria, princess is more like a position of divine authority. It's tied to power instead of bloodline. Celestia and Luna aren't referred to as queens, even though they clearly rule the nation. The word princess almost works as a kind of propaganda. It softens their image, makes them sound benevolent and approachable, even though they hold total control over the kingdom. Celestia seems to serve as both head of state and head of government. She commands the royal guards, oversees national ceremonies, and, obviously, raises the sun. Luna shares equal power in theory, but in practice she functions more as a co-ruler or vice-regent, handling knight affairs and moral guidance. Their dynamic creates a diarchy, two rulers sharing one throne. That balance of power, while symbolic, actually sets the foundation for how authority in Equestria operates, leadership consisting of harmony between equals rather than dominion over them. Then we have Cadence and Twilight, which add more layers to it. Cadence rules the Crystal Empire, which is technically a separate state with its own population and defense forces, yet it's still considered part of Equestria's broader sphere of influence. Think of it as a semi-autonomous kingdom that aligns with Equestria's leadership, something between a vassal state and a federal province. Twilight, meanwhile, begins as a regional ruler, Princess of Friendship, before ascending to full national leadership after Celestia and Luna's retirement. Her version of rule seems to be more modernized and decentralized. Rather than maintaining a monarchy in the traditional sense, Twilight acts more like a coordinator between cities, schools, and friendship councils. Under her, Equestria almost transitions into a kind of constitutional monarchy. Friendship is valued highly and functions as a national ideology. And that's how it works with the princesses. Each of them represents a different branch of Equestrian governance. Celestia symbolizes stability and tradition, Luna represents moral balance and emotional well-being, Cadence oversees love and diplomacy, and Twilight embodies knowledge, communication, and education. Together, they form a soft power system where one authority isn't enforced through laws or armies, but through the moral and magical influence each ruler holds. So while it might look like four alicorns sharing a throne, the truth is closer to a council of specialized leaders, each responsible for maintaining a different piece of Equestria's harmony. A monarchy powered less by politics and more by principles. Now, while the princesses technically run Equestria, they don't do everything themselves. For a country that big, with multiple cities, regions, and species to govern, there has to be some kind of administrative layer below them, and that's where the nobles, bureaucrats, and local officials come in. The ponies who keep the system running, while the alicorns handle the big picture. At the top of this middle tier, we have the Cancelot nobility. They're usually portrayed as wealthy and out-of-touch elites, but their role is actually pretty important. In a lot of ways, they function like an unelected parliament, not directly ruling, but influencing how laws are made and how resources are distributed. Ponies like Fancy Pants or even Blue Blood fit into that upper class with connections category. They don't pass laws, but they probably advise, lobby, and fund whatever decisions the crown makes. I should mention, I did count Prince Blue Blood as a member of nobility rather than a member of royalty, because although he is called Prince Blue Blood and he is technically Celestia's nephew, apparently in the original plan from French's Magic he was supposed to be a duke, which is a nobility of the highest honour. In the show he functions more like a member of nobility, not really a ruling monarch or member of royalty, so that's why I am putting him here. Just want to address that. Then there's the bureaucracy, the dozens of unnamed ponies who actually make sure trains run on time, taxes are collected, and friendship schools get their funding. We don't see them much in the show, but they have to exist. Equestria runs too smoothly for everything to be handled by Celestia alone. You've got mayors managing towns, judges holding court, weather managers, and local councils. Even Ponyville, chaotic as it is, has an organised local government with mayor at the head. That suggests a system that's semi-federal, one where each town handles its own internal affairs, while the princesses oversee national unity and defense. It's not just ponies either. The way the show expands Equestria over time into places like Equestria, the Dragonlands, and Griffinstone implies a sort of diplomatic bureaucracy too. Ambassadors, trade negotiators, and cultural liaisons must exist behind the scenes, maintaining all those interspecies relationships that Twilight and her friends tend to fix in person. It's basically the paperwork behind the friendship that you don't see when you watch the show. Within Equestria's borders, this setup creates an interesting question. How much real power do the nobles actually have? It's possible that the princesses delegate authority out of practicality, not necessity, allowing nobles to manage regional concerns as long as they stay loyal to the crown. That's very similar to how medieval monarchies worked, where the ruler technically owned all land, but let the aristocracy manage it in exchange for taxes or military support. Of course, Equestria's version would be a lot friendlier. Instead of taxes and soldiers, it would be something more nice, like galas. But the effect is the same. The nobles help stabilize the system, acting as intermediaries between the divine leadership of the princesses and the everyday ponies of the realm. So while the alicorns embody harmony and friendship, the nobles and bureaucrats embody functionality. The machinery of the government that keeps harmony from falling apart. They're not heroes or villains. They're the ponies who make sure that when Celestia races the sun, the trains are still running, the cider is flowing, and every town hall is in good order. So far, we've been talking about the parts of Equestria that are, well, actually Equestria. The princesses are at the top, the nobles and bureaucrats keep things running, and the mayors manage life on the ground. But Equestria isn't just a single country surrounded by empty space. It's part of a whole network of kingdoms, empires, and tribes, all existing alongside and sometimes under its influence. The most obvious example is the Crystal Empire, technically ruled by Princess Cadance. It's often treated as both part of and separate from Equestria. Its citizens follow their own customs, use their own magic, and even have their own history stretching back 1,000 years. But since its return, it's clearly been folded into Equestria's larger structure. Not as a province, but as an ally state governed by one of the Alicorn princesses. That relationship feels less like direct control and more like an old school vassal arrangement. Beyond that, Equestria's ties to the other lands are mostly diplomatic rather than governmental. Equestria, the Dragonlands and Griffinstone, Mount Aeris, and even the Changeling Kingdom each have their own rulers, laws, and cultures. What connects them isn't a shared government, it's Equestria's soft power. Over time, the nation has built an informal empire, not through conquest, but through friendship diplomacy. Again, I should just mention, some of those settlements and kingdoms I mentioned are technically in Equestria, some of them aren't, but we're just uniting them all as separate kingdoms, kinda, just for the simplicity of it. Twilight's School of Friendship basically acts as a foreign relations office, trailing future leaders in equestrian ideals. It's not colonization, but it's not colonization either. This makes Equestria's political structure fascinatingly decentralized. Instead of trying to unify every race under one flag, the system encourages coexistence through mutual benefit. Dragons get friendship lessons, griffins get trade routes, and changelings get redemption arcs, and in return, Equestria gets peace, stability, and a growing network of allies who all owe them at least one favour. It's nation building by emotional leverage. There's even a subtle hierarchy within that alliance. Nations tied to a princess like Crystal Empire sit closest to the centre of Equestria's political gravity. Others like the Dragonlands or Griffinstone remain semi-independent, only stepping in when they really need to. It's an ecosystem more than an empire, even though I did use empire earlier. One where harmony, not territory, defines influence. What's most impressive about this is how the structure survives without a centralised military or clear international law. Conflicts aren't solved through armies or sanctions, but through personal relationships, the kind forged by Twilight, Celestia, and the rest. It's a system built entirely on the assumption that goodwill will hold, and against all odds, it does. Now that we've looked at Equestria from every level, from the royal throne down to the local town hall, it's time to zoom back out and see how it all connects. At the top, the princesses represent unity and continuity. They're living symbols of stability, basically. Celestia and Luna have kept the nation steady for over 1,000 years. Cadance manages her own realm while still aligning with the crown, and Twilight inherits the whole system to lead it into the future. None of them govern through brute force or fear. Their authority comes from trust and reputation. Beneath them sits the bureaucratic class, which handles the details. The nobles, administrators, and advisors form a kind of unspoken government infrastructure. Not elected and not codified, but clearly functional. They represent the continuity of policy, keeping things running no matter who's on the throne. It's the quiet backbone of Equestria's governance. Then we have local leadership, where the magic of friendship turns from philosophy into practice. Towns like Ponyville, cities like Canterlot, and cloud cities like Cloudsdale each govern themselves, loosely followed by equestrian ideals rather than strict royal decrees. That autonomy keeps the system flexible. It allows Equestria to be both enormous and personal at the same time. It's a country run by trust instead of control. And finally, on the outermost ring, you've got the allied kingdoms. The dragons, yaks, changelings, hippogriffs, and griffins. They don't answer to Equestria, but they operate within its sphere of influence. Through diplomacy, trade, and cultural exchange, Equestria holds together a soft coalition that keeps the entire region stable. It's the kind of magical version of the United Nations if you think about it. Put all that together and you've got something unique. A hybrid system of monarchy, or diacry or whatever I said earlier, meritocracy, and moral unity. The princesses rule symbolically, the nobles administer practically, the mayors manage locally, and the allies cooperate voluntarily. There's no single chain of command, but there is a shared ideology. Harmony. That's what replaces straight laws and traditional armies. It's government as philosophy, a system where belief is stronger than law. So when we talk about Equestria's political system, it's not really who rules what. It's about how a nation built on friendship manages to turn that into something that actually functions. Not perfectly or logically, but it does. So, in the end, to summarise everything I've said in this video, Equestria's political system isn't a straightforward monarchy or democracy, or anything that fits into our world's labels really. It's a living network of trust, a country held together by symbols and tradition and shared values rather than laws or power. There's no constitution or parliament, and barely any straight set out rules or laws, but somehow it all functions. Because the ponies believe in the idea that it should. And in Equestria, all it really takes. And that's it for this week's video. I hope you enjoyed. I did my best to paint a clear picture of what at least I believe is the structure of Equestria and how it is run. Hopefully you learned something. I do apologise for it not being, feudal system, like, set out hierarchy, but due to the nature of just how Equestria is in its show and all the stuff that is left up to speculation, you can't really do that. I did my best, but you could always improve. And feel free to put in the comments any suggestions or improvements you have, and maybe more clear insight you may have. If you did enjoy the video, why not leave a like, and consider subscribing when you're down there. I want to see if we can hit 10,000 subscribers by the end of the year, so why not help out? If you want to support the channel even more, you could become a channel member. Thanks to the Red Ravioli, Creator Zone, and MyFumi for being monotonal members. And with all that said, thanks for watching, I've been Monodash, and I'll see you sometime soon.